There's a moment in every life, maybe it's already happened to you, when someone says something that cuts a little deeper than it should. A comment, a judgment, a sneer, a post, a whisper. Maybe it's about how you look, how you speak, what you believe, or what you've done. And it lingers. It loops in your head. But you replay it, trying to understand it, to justify yourself, to push back or explain. And quietly you begin to shrink. Your sense of self is no longer rooted in who you are, but in how others see you. This is the trap Marcus Aurelius warned us about nearly 2,000 years ago. He ruled an empire, yet he faced the same human pain we do, criticism. Misunderstanding. But unlike most of us, he learned how to stay unbothered. Not because he was numb or arrogant, but because he understood something profound about human nature, perception, and the power of inner clarity. And in this video, you and I are going to dissect that wisdom, not as a dusty quote on a page, but as a living, breathing strategy for freedom. Because let's face it, if we can learn to stay centered in a world that constantly tries to pull us apart, we don't just survive. We become unshakable.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The first thing Marcus Aurelius makes painfully clear is this: people will judge you no matter what you do. You could be kind, generous, disciplined, honest, and still you'll be misunderstood. You'll be criticized. So the question isn't if you'll face criticism. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you crumble under it? Will you chase approval until you lose yourself? Or will you stand firm in your character, like a cliff against which the waves crash but cannot move? Aurelius called this the fortress within, but he believed that the only defense against the chaos of public opinion was the cultivation of an inner citadel, a mind trained to see clearly, to act justly, and to remain undisturbed by things outside its control. And criticism is outside your control. But here's the logic. When someone criticizes you, they are not describing you. They are revealing themselves, their values, their expectations, their unresolved pain, their limited view. So ask yourself, why would I surrender my peace to someone who doesn't even know me fully? Why would I let their passing opinion define my eternal self? Marcus wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." That's the secret. It's not what they say, it's what you do with what they say. And that's where your power lives. But let's not pretend this is easy. We're human. We want to be liked. We want to belong. We want to be seen and understood. So when criticism strikes, it hits our most vulnerable places: our identity, our worth, our sense of safety. And that's why we need philosophy not as an abstract system of thought, but as a shield, a way to reframe the experience. Aurelius would have us ask, is what they're saying true? If yes, thank them. Let it refine you. Let it sharpen your character. That's not a wound, it's a mirror. But if it's not true, then why let a falsehood disturb your peace? Why give weight to a fiction? Imagine someone walked up to you and said, "You're a purple elephant." Would you be offended? No, because it's absurd. It doesn't touch any part of your identity. But when someone says you're lazy or you're not good enough, and it hurts that pain is revealing where your self-image is still shaky, still uncertain. That's the gift hidden in criticism. It shows you where you still need to come home to yourself. Not with pride, but with clarity. Not with ego, but with truth. And here's where we go deeper. Marcus believed that every human being is part of the same whole. That the person criticizing you is not your enemy, but your kin. Another fragment of the divine mind, confused perhaps, but still worthy of compassion. He would ask, what pain are they carrying that makes them lash out? What misunderstanding clouds their eyes? And suddenly, the heat of judgment softens. You no longer need to retaliate or internalize. You can simply observe and respond not with anger, not with self-doubt, but with understanding or silence or gentle correction. Now, let's bring this down to real life. You post something online and someone mocks it. You speak your truth in a room and someone rolls their eyes. You live your values and someone calls you naive. What do you do? In that moment, most of us react. We explain, we argue, we shrink. But Marcus offers a path of stillness. He writes, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. But don't feel harmed and you haven't been. It sounds radical, but it's not denial. It's discernment. It's the realization that your peace is not something others can give or take. It's yours, and it's protected by your understanding of what truly matters. So let me ask you a question one Marcus would have asked himself daily. Where am I still giving my peace away? What opinions am I still enslaved to? What truths about myself have I forgotten in trying to please others? These questions aren't just reflective. They're liberating. They bring you back into alignment. They remind you that the opinions of others are weather and you are the sky. Constant, vast, unmoved. There's also a deeper philosophical layer here, the role of ego. Criticism only stings when it touches the ego. But your ego is not your essence. It's your mask, your construct, your story of me. Marcus knew that the ego is always vulnerable because it's always trying to be something important, admired, superior. But the soul doesn't need validation. It just is. And when you live from that space, not from performance, but from presence, you become untouchable. Not because you're cold or indifferent, but because you're rooted, grounded, free. So here's the challenge Marcus Aurelius would give us his modern audience. Living in a world louder than ever before, can you listen to criticism without letting it define you? Can you remain kind in the face of judgment? Can you use each moment of attack as a moment of awakening? Because this isn't about building walls, but it's about building depth. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand in the storm and still see the stars, who can hear the noise and still choose silence, who can be misunderstood and still love anyway. Criticism, in the end, is a test, not of your worth, but of your wisdom. It's a question life asks, have you remembered who you are? And every time you respond not with defense, but with clarity, not with fear, but with truth, you pass that test. You grow, you rise. You become a little more like the person Marcus Aurelius hoped we all could be, not perfect, but present. Not invincible, but unshaken. Not above the world, but within it, fully alive, fully sovereign, fully free. Let's go even deeper into the mind of Marcus Aurelius and uncover the true Stoic superpower, something so rare and radical in our noisy world that it might actually feel like magic, this inner stillness. Not silence as in the absence of sound, but stillness as in the absence of disturbance. A kind of unshakable calm that remains, even when the world turns hostile. This is the essence of Stoicism, and it is the key to becoming immune not to criticism itself, because that will always exist, but to the power we give it. But think about this. What if no one's words could reach your peace unless you gave them permission? What if your emotional life was no longer dictated by the opinions of strangers, co-workers, or even family? That's not a fantasy, it's a discipline. A trained way of seeing, thinking, and being. And Marcus Aurelius practiced it every single day, not from a retreat or monastery, but while ruling the Roman Empire under constant pressure, betrayal, and scrutiny. If he could find stillness there, then maybe, just maybe, we can find it here. But let's not confuse stillness with passivity. This isn't about becoming numb, apathetic, or emotionally detached. It's about becoming clear. When criticism comes, we don't shut down or lash out. We pause. We breathe. We observe. We ask, is this true? Is this useful? Is this worth my energy? And if the answer is no, we let it pass like a cloud in the sky, like a wave on the ocean. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not just a quote to print on a poster. It's a blueprint for mental sovereignty. Stillness begins with the understanding that not everything deserves a reaction. Most of us are walking around like emotional accelerants, ready to ignite the moment someone disrespects us, disagrees with us, or disapproves of us. But Marcus would ask, why give your power away so easily? Why let someone else's mood, ignorance, or projection derail your clarity? Imagine if every time someone tried to provoke you, they hit a wall of awareness, no fuel, no fire, just presence. That's what inner stillness does. It doesn't suppress emotion. It masters it. Here's where it gets even more interesting. When you live from stillness, you begin to see criticism for what it really is, a mirror. Sometimes it reflects truth you needed to hear. Sometimes it reflects someone else's pain. But either way, it's never about your essence. Your essence is untouchable. It's the flame that burns even when the world tries to extinguish it. Marcus often reminded himself that he was a soul carrying a corpse, not as a grim thought, but as a liberating one. But if the body is temporary and the ego is constructed, then why be wounded by what others think of either? Why let the shadow of someone else's opinion darken your inner light? And yet, most of us do. We obsess over what they said. We argue in our heads. We replay conversations. We craft perfect responses we'll never send. Why? Because we haven't yet anchored ourselves in what's real. And what's real is this: no one can truly know you as you know yourself. No one sees the full map of your growth, your struggles, your intentions. So to base your peace on their approval is to build your life on sand. It will always shift. It will never hold. Stillness, on the other hand, is bedrock. It's forged through practice, through solitude, and through reflection. Through choosing, moment after moment, to come back to yourself before reacting to the world. And it's in that stillness that you begin to access something extraordinary: freedom. The kind of freedom that isn't dependent on being liked, praised, or even understood. The kind of freedom that lets you walk through criticism with grace, not because it doesn't touch you, but because you've already touched something deeper. So how do we practice this in real life? Start with breath. Seriously. When the criticism comes, pause. 1 breath. 2. 3. Then ask, does this threaten my integrity? Does this threaten my values? Does this change who I am? Most of the time, the answer is no. And then you get to choose how to respond, not react. Respond. Maybe you say something. Maybe you don't. Maybe you walk away. Maybe you clarify. But you do it from stillness, not from ego. From strength, not from fear. Marcus also reminds us that criticism is inevitable because humans are flawed. When you wake up in the morning, he wrote, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not as a complaint, but as preparation. Because when you expect people to be perfect, their criticism shocks you. But when you accept human nature, you're ready. And that readiness gives you peace. But here's the deeper twist. Even your own self-criticism can be handled with stillness. Because often, the harshest critic is not out there, it's inside your own head. The voice that says you're not enough, not doing enough, not becoming enough. Marcus faced that voice too, and his response, in compassionate discipline, he would write to himself, not to punish, but to remind, to remember what matters, to return to the path. And that's the key. Stillness is not perfection. It's the return. The constant, humble return to your deeper self. The self that knows, I am not what they say. I am what I choose to be. So ask yourself now, when I am criticized, do I react from ego or respond from essence? Do I defend my image or protect my peace? What am I still giving away that I could reclaim through stillness? These aren't easy questions, but they're the doorway to freedom. Because once you realize that your value is not up for debate, you stop arguing. Once you realize that your peace is not a result of circumstances, you stop chasing. Once you realize that your worth is intrinsic, eternal, and untouched by opinion, you become unbothered. Not because you don't care, but because you care deeply about the right things. This is the Stoic superpower, not invincibility, but equanimity, a calmness so profound that it becomes contagious, a stillness so rooted that others begin to feel it in your presence. Imagine being that person, the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't panic, doesn't spiral when things get loud. The one who listens, thinks, and responds with clarity. That's not just wisdom, that's power. And the best part, it's available to you right now, not someday, not when you've read every book or mastered every practice, but right now, in this breath, in this awareness, in this choice, to come back to yourself and to anchor in what's real, to listen to the noise and not let it drown your inner voice. So let them talk, let them project, let them misunderstand. You are not here to be approved. You are here to be, to live, to serve, to grow, and no voice outside of you can ever silence the truth inside of you unless you let it. What does it actually mean to be unshakable? And to become the kind of person who can walk through criticism, not around it, not above it, but through it and remain whole. Marcus Aurelius pointed us toward that state not as a fantasy reserved for the few, but as a responsibility for all. And to live well, to live honestly, And to live freely, we must develop what I call the invincible self. Not a self armored in arrogance or denial, not someone who blocks the world out, but someone who opens so deeply into truth that no opinion, no rumor, and no insult can fracture their core. The invincible self is not hard, it's clear. It's not numb, it's awake. And it emerges only when we stop seeing criticism as a threat and start seeing it as a test. Not a test of our popularity, but a test of our philosophy. To Marcus, the invincible self was built on 3 pillars: virtue, reason, and perspective. If you've done nothing wrong, he believed, and your conscience is clear, then what is there to fear from words? Why should the noise outside disturb the stillness within? He put it plainly, if any man despises me, that is his problem. My only concern is not doing or saying anything deserving of contempt. But that's the formula. You focus on your character, not your reputation. Because reputation is a shadow easily distorted, always shifting. But character, that's the solid ground beneath your feet. And when you live from that ground, you become untouchable, not because no one attacks, but because the attacks no longer reach. But let's be real, most of us don't live there yet. We live in a world that treats criticism like a death sentence. One bad review, one harsh comment, one cold look from someone you admire, and suddenly it's like our very identity is up for grabs. Why? Because we've built our sense of self on external validation, not internal truth. The invincible self can't be built that way. It has to be built brick by brick, moment by moment, through decisions that align not with popularity, but with principle. And that means asking yourself hard questions. Am I acting in accordance with my values? Am I speaking from truth or from fear? Am I living for applause or for integrity? This is where Marcus's brilliance shines. He understood that philosophy wasn't just for debating in marble halls, it was for battlefields, and for courtrooms, for dinner tables, for those moments when someone slanders you, misunderstands you, or tries to reduce you to a caricature. In those moments, the invincible self doesn't flinch. It remembers. It remembers that we're all temporary, that opinions are wind, that the only thing you truly possess is your ability to respond with wisdom. And if someone says something cruel, you don't have to prove them wrong, you just have to be who you are. The rest takes care of itself. Let's go even deeper. Criticism often hurts most when it echoes a doubt we already carry. That's the secret nobody talks about. It's not always what they say, it's what part of you believes it might be true. That's why we must use criticism like a lantern, not to burn ourselves, but to illuminate the areas we still need to strengthen. If someone calls you selfish, ask, am I acting in alignment with generosity? If someone says you're weak, ask, am I avoiding my own power? If someone says you're fake, ask, am I being fully authentic? And if, after honest reflection, you find that the criticism is false, let it go. Like a bird flying past your window. Like a breeze that never touches the core of your being. The invincible self is also humble. It doesn't pretend to be above learning. In fact, it welcomes feedback, but only when it comes from truth, not from toxicity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." That's the paradox. The invincible self is not rigid. It's flexible, it adapts, it listens. But it does not bend to please. It bends only toward truth. So how do we cultivate this way of being in a world that rewards image over essence? We return, over and over, to stillness, to virtue, to presence. We meditate on impermanence. We recognize that every insult, every misunderstanding, every moment of judgment is already dissolving into history. 100 years from now, none of it will matter. But how you responded, that echoes. That shapes your soul. That becomes legacy. And here's the ultimate twist. When you become unbothered by criticism, you don't become distant, you become free to connect. Free to love without fear. Free to speak without calculation. Free to live without the chains of what will they think. Because when you no longer need approval, you can finally give attention. You can finally be here. And that presence, that's what transforms people. That's what shifts cultures. Not loud arguments, but quiet integrity. So let me ask you one final question, one that might change the way you walk through your entire life. What would it feel like to live in such alignment with your values that no criticism could shake you, because you already knew who you were? What would it feel like to meet every judgment with curiosity, every insult with stillness, every misunderstanding with grace, not because you're better, but because you're rooted? That's the gift Marcus Aurelius left us. Not a shield to block the world, but a mirror to reflect it wisely. Not a wall to hide behind, but a compass to navigate it with clarity. When you know who you are, when you live from your center, when you walk the path of virtue, you don't fear criticism. You outgrow it. So let them speak. Let them misunderstand. Let them judge. You are not here to be defined by the noise. You are here to embody the signal. You are not a reaction. You are a revelation. Let that be enough.